All right, we're ready for our next session. If everyone would come join us out in the hall, let's get going here. So this next panel is going to be a good one. We've got some great people on the panel. We've got John Hudson, Hannah Green, Chris McRitchie, and the moderator, Sarah Maskell from the Wall Street Journal, our partner. And I'm happy to tell you that we'll be partnering again next year with the Wall Street Journal, so looking for big things with that relationship. So welcome our panel.
The Digital Cloud Summit today. This is an amazing opportunity to get together in person, so really appreciate it. So I am Sarah Maskell. I am the SVP at the Wall Street Journal Barron's Group with a special concentration on the tech, media, and telco space. And ultimately, we have recently at Dow Jones as well as News Corp acquired Opus, which is really our foray into data and energy as well as renewables in a new way, and really reframing the way that our editorial products come to life. Those editorial products have really seen an evolution across the Wall Street Journal, MarketWatch, and Barron's, in which we are leaning into in a much deeper way, both the energy sector as a whole, as well as ESG and sustainable business as part of our core construct of conversations. Recently, we released a report in partnership with Deloitte around the Russia-Ukraine conflict and how this is evolving the way that ultimately the business and community as well as the energy sector is impacted as well as the global affairs. So ultimately, we are here and very pleased to be joined today by four amazing panelists. So we have Jens Michael Peters, who's the CEO of ePrimo. Thank you. Hannah Green, Worldwide Power and Utilities Leader at Microsoft. John O. Hudson III, Senior VP of Entergy. And Chris McRitchie, Vice President of Hybrid Cloud Services, Communications Sector for IBM. So we will have a Q&A today after our session, or at the end of our session, so please get your questions ready, as I will be turning it over to you to be able to engage directly with the panelists. So thank you all for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I would love to go down the line and have you introduce yourselves as well as the areas of focus for your role. Hannah, do you want to kick us off?
Happy to. It's a pleasure to be with you all today and to be joined by this great panel. I'll just share a little bit about where Microsoft lands in energy because that helps define a little bit of my focus in this space. Microsoft plays a few different roles in energy. We're a large and growing global load with data centers around the world. We're on track to be one of the largest energy users in the world by 2030, and our data center team, who I work closely with, measures their growth in acres per month. And all of that growth is what's powering the cloud and the digital investments that we're all making in this space. We're also collaborators and partners in the policy, market development, and regulatory arenas, helping push for and work alongside utilities for infrastructure investment, for smart grid investment, for growth in renewables. And I've got a good news update for you all on that one as well today. And in the third space, we are a technology partner and an innovation partner to utilities. We don't compete with utilities. We don't try to intercept between utilities and their customers, and we don't sell direct energy product to customers. So our role in the innovation space is how do we show up as a global hyperscaler, the largest cybersecurity company in the world and a large digital platform provider to work with utilities in going to cloud, in bringing cloud for utilities really to life as a digital and transformation partner, often focused around carbon innovation, workforce innovation, resilience, and affordability. So my role is sitting on that third leg of the stool. I sit in our global energy industry team focused on how we help utilities as a partner accelerate on that journey. I'll hand it over.
John, over to you.
Thank you. I'm John Hudson. I've worked with utilities for more than 25 years. Most of my career has been with Southern Company. Southern Company is headquartered in Atlanta. and has utilities across the Southeast, electric utilities, as well as gas utilities. My last role at Southern Company was CEO of Nicor Gas, which is the largest gas utility at Southern Company. And I retired after 23 years and immediately went to work for another company, Entergy. And so Entergy is another utility holding company headquartered in New Orleans. We have 5 utilities in Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. And so that is what I do. I have a perspective. I run external affairs for Entergy. That was really what I did for Southern Company most of my career. And so I have a perspective from a customer experience standpoint. I also have a perspective in terms of dealing with regulators. And so we'll talk more about that because that's what drives my views on the future of technology.
Wonderful. Thank you, John. This is already going to be a fascinating discussion. Jens, over to you.
Yeah, exactly, taking over, John. Thank you so much. You highlighted the subject and topic customer experience, which I think we shared it yesterday as well, is one of the most relevant aspects from a utility point of view, especially in these times. So to introduce myself, I'm CEO of ePrimo. ePrimo is a challenger brand in the German energy market. We are serving now 1.7 million customers with gas and electricity all over Germany. And we are, at a side note, the green energy supplier with the most customers in Germany, at least so far. And what we are dealing for the time being with, I mean, you will be aware of this one out of the discussions as well in the public, is the energy crisis we are in. And I think customer experience is a perfect driver as well to leverage technology in a way that we serve our customers best and achieve as well the performance we are looking for. We will highlight this later. Yes, and 25 years, I think this is another aspect which we share, experience in the energy sector, marketing of services and energy across Europe.
Perfect. Thank you, Jens. Over to you, Chris.
Okay. So Chris McRitchie with IBM Consulting. So I lead our energy and utilities practice for the US for IBM Consulting. And, you know, I guess in a nutshell, what I would say that we are most focused on, it's really helping clients leverage, you know, what we'll call hybrid cloud and intelligent workflows. This week we had a number of clients talking about the kinds of work that we're doing. We had Direct Energy, DTE, FBL, Liberty Utilities, you know, telling stories about the kinds of examples of work that we're doing that's both hybrid cloud. Almost everything we're doing these days is cloud and hybrid cloud in particular, and intelligent workflows.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, wanted to kick us off with the topic of energy and technology and really what the future holds. So as we look forward, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how technology is influencing your business. John, I'd love to start with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. So when I think about the future of energy, I think the focus will definitely be on decarbonization. You know, so that's what everyone has been talking about for the last 20 years, whether it's wind and solar and how to get that energy to market quicker, faster, more efficiently. My focus has been, however, on what I mentioned earlier, on the customer experience. And when you think about decarbonization, clearly it's very, very important, no question about that. But I think about the underappreciated and undervalued folks that we represent across our service territory. In the South, in the Southeast, our customers. When I was with Southern, the customer base, 40% had household income of $40,000 or less. At Entergy, even when I think of Louisiana and Arkansas and Mississippi, 32% live at or below the poverty line. And so when I think about technology, I think we need to spend more time focusing on that particular segment of the customer base. Not only because it's the right thing to do, but I think if you're able to do that, I think regulators appreciate it more, and you're able to deal with your regulators in a more meaningful way. I know and I understand what drives our business. It's whatever the regulators allow us to do. And so when I think of regulators in the Southeast, particularly, technology is a focus, but it's probably not as much of a focus as you would see here in California or other places. The focus is affordability and how you impact customers. So, you know, using technology to enable connectivity, to enable affordability is where I would like more of the focus to be.
Perfect. Thank you, John. Hannah, I'd love to hear your perspective as well on technology and energy as it relates to your efforts around utilities as a whole, as well as the technology innovations at Microsoft.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to pick up where John left off too. I've run regulatory teams, done regulatory work in a number of states, and it's always my approach. What are we doing? What are we delivering? What value are we delivering to our customers? And most importantly, how are we working together to really solve this generational challenge, but generational opportunity to deliver clean energy faster in a way that is more affordable, more resilient, and secure in a more and more challenging environment to deliver all of those four capabilities. Technology is a tool set to do that. It's not the center stage. And when I think we deliver at our best as an industry and communicate our best out into the general populace of customers who actually don't want to think about energy for more than 8 minutes a year, it's because we show up around what value we're delivering to them, and the technology becomes an enabler and an engine behind that. I recently had the opportunity to speak with a number of our utility commissioners at NARUC. And a few approached me afterwards, and they said, this is the first technology talk I've ever been to where you actually didn't say cloud once. We talked about equipping field workers with technology capabilities that make their jobs safer and easier and get them off of pen and paper where they might not have a standard operating procedure for the device that they're working on, which could actually increase the challenges of their day-to-day work, and equipping them with tools like HoloLens and remote assist and hardened field devices that help them get through the day faster, more safely, with more expert call-in advice from back home. So I'm always centered on what's the value that we're delivering with our tech. I want to share, too, the way that we attempt to make sense of the complexities in this environment with energy and tech is around 4 focus areas. For us, it's operate for the future, around increasing operational efficiency for the utility business. How can we show up and help use technology to reduce OpEx and improve the functional operations of your platforms? Transform your workforce. That's enabling an existing workforce with new tools, new capabilities, new safety, new training, but it's also recruiting and getting people on ramp faster into jobs in an industry that they might not have been in before, and even getting them in the door into this industry, which we know is a challenge right now. It's just a hard hiring environment for talent. The third is transition to clean. How can we be an agent in technology to help transition to a real-time operating environment in the grid? And how can we work with utilities to bring technology to reimagine energy, to help invent the business of 2035 and 2050? And we know that tech's going to be a huge part of that. How can we help really sit at the C-suite level, even at the boardroom level, and work with you to think about what's the company you're trying to become, and how do we help you on that journey today?
Thank you for that, Hannah. I think it's really interesting that both of you are touching on the human side of this conversation, both from a field worker perspective as well as the actual customers that you're reaching. All of us are very aware that COVID-19 and the pandemic impacted the way that we all live and work, and specifically around technological advancements and with a keen eye on sustainability. So Jens, I was hoping to hear from you as far as your outlook and what your kind of eye is around the changing and shifting landscape.
To add first on what Hannah said, I totally agree that we are in a situation that we use technology as an enabler for different purposes, whether it's sustainability, whether it's cost to serve, for instance, to give an example, to improve this one and to keep up on the level of performance, even in these unprecedented times. And this is something which I wanted to share before answering to your question directly. What we have witnessed, and I think this is something which all of us are facing as utilities and every industry, the speed of change has increased dramatically. And we have even more, a higher frequency of disrupting events which we need to handle and which we need to maneuver around. So COVID is one. The other one is the actual energy crisis we are in. I will refer later to it. But in the very beginning, technology helped us to identify small signals, what would happen. And we didn't have lots of time to react upon it. I'll give you one example. This is the human aspect in it. We identified that our customers changed their behavior in approaching us. So within 18 months, the number 18 is important here. Within 18 months, the customer behavior shifted. They approached us on their mobile device, doing their service with us from 20% to 50%. And this is relevant. This is relevant because we needed to organize around it in order to have the same operational excellence as before. Another one is what you said with the whole sustainability issue. We as a utility were requested to come up with propositions with green energy. So customers were asking, what can I contribute as a person to make the energy transition reality? And they requested green tariffs. So we were pushing these green tariffs, and a customer asked us as well, by the way, is there any guarantee that this green energy comes from a specific source? And we said, no, for the time being, we have these certificates, and this means that your electricity is green. So the customer were critical and asked, can we please have something which we can link directly to certain generation capacities? And together with the customer, we designed a proposition which is called Green Energy Community, so to say. I think this is the English tradition on it. And this was set up as well within 18 months. So speed is everything what is relevant to cope with the performance requirements we have around us. And technology helps us to do so. I think we will discuss this later, but just wanted to share the thoughts upon this, and I think all of us need to be able to take the challenges which are out there and deal with it in a successful way. Because the impact what we are facing at the very moment in Europe is at a level where an energy supplier can go bankrupt from one day to another one. And this is why it matters to stay here at the page and have a capability to address these needs instantly, and technology helps.
Absolutely, thank you so much. Chris, I'd love to hear your perspective, especially from IBM, and as you look at the kind of global scope that Jens mentioned as well.
Well, it's interesting to hear Jens Michael talk about the increasing speed at which all of this is happening, and the irony of that is, and it'll never be this slow again. It just keeps going. Yeah, I would say, I think that there's two things happening right now. There's clearly technologies that are coming into play that are changing a lot of the way that we do what we do. But the other thing is it's also about a way of working, right? So I think everything is becoming more agile. I'll use the term design thinking. Some of these terms are probably overly used, but when I say design thinking, what I really mean is putting stakeholder groups at the center and exploring what all those requirements might be, going beyond what you might think the requirements are, a little bit of research, a little bit of survey focus group kind of stuff, to actually unearth maybe unrecognized requirements, which is how you really get to the better, more full, complete experience, whether that's field work, customers, or other stakeholders, right? So I think that's also part of how we're all doing work differently today, and I think we're getting much better outcomes as a result of that. I think One of the other things that I'll say that, maybe this is shifting a little bit more to where I think we're going next. Some of these problems are extremely complex, right? So everybody's struggling with maybe their system reliability, the dynamics of what's happening on the supply side and customer demand. And it used to be much more predictable. It's much less predictable now, and is becoming much less predictable as we go forward. More renewables and distributed generation and all of that. So one of the things we've been doing at IBM of recent is, quantum computing. And, it sort of started as a research, endeavor, and it's become a platform. It's become an operating system. It's moved now out of the research lab and into literally a consulting practice, sort of looking for the appropriate use cases where quantum computing makes sense. So an obvious, quantum computing is really best known for very complex optimization. So financial markets is an obvious sort of first place. But as we look at our industry and we say, how could we take advantage of that? We actually work with some European utilities now in this system reliability sort of equation, which is extremely complex in light of, sort of the way I just described it, and modeling that in a quantum sort of platform and looking for the optimizations and sort of where are the weaknesses in this, which is becoming very insightful. So it's still a bit early days of that out in the wild, but it's actually becoming very insightful and revealing. So I think that'll be a thing that we'll talk more about in years to come, of what the benefits we're getting out of that.
Yeah, the conversations around quantum computing has definitely continued to evolve into real test cases that are quite substantial, and so I'm excited to see how that can impact the energy sector. John, one of the areas you touched on earlier that I wanted to revisit is the impact on the workforce of kind of technology innovation, and especially kind of where we've been in the last few years with many people working from home, but then many people, such as at our plants and our distribution centers, have been in person the entire time. And so can you talk a little bit more about what you've been seeing as far as those field workers within the energy space, and what opportunities you see for improvement of distribution of kind of technology and or services to them?
Yeah, I think this is, it's a great example of really trying to figure out where you make investments in technology and what your priorities are. So we had an earlier discussion about how we work. I have this option of where I want to live. Right now I'm living in Atlanta. My company is based in New Orleans. I've got a group in Houston, Texas, a group in New Orleans, and a group in Washington, D.C. And so I have this option to decide where I want to live. And after COVID-19, clearly how we work has been, really interesting for us to try to figure out. But that's for only really half of our employees. The field employees have gone to work every day. Mm-hmm. Nothing has changed. So people at Southern Company, when I worked, for Nicor Gas, those field employees work on making homes safe. And so they had to be on call all the time. And we have linemen now who work every day. Things, aren't really changing for them. And so when you talked earlier about, sort of field employees and the technology that you're using to make their lives more simple, their jobs easier, I think those are important investments. And I heard what you talked about when you talked about the renewable energy credits and how you have customers who are really trying to authenticate, those credits, where do they actually come from? Well, for my market, that's a rich person's problem, right? Mm-hmm. When you have 33% of your workforce living at or below the poverty level, they don't know about renewable energy credits. Mm-hmm. They need affordable electricity. They need affordable gas. And so, how are we leveraging technology to get LIHEAP and other federal funding dollars in their hands? Because they all do use these phones. And so how do you use technology to leverage that to make that easier for them? And so when I think about investments in technology and what's going to make my job easier and help us to get to the places where we need to go in terms of reliability, in terms of decarbonization, you've got to think about the least of these in terms of making technology investments, and we don't always do that.
Right, absolutely. Jens, I'd love to turn it over to you from a global perspective and how the workforce has changed and how technology has influenced from your perspective.
So what we have used in all these examples I stated, whether it's been the situation where the customer demanded something instantly or where we have now the energy crisis, we always set a team up and define a clear ownership. So we take, starting with the first step, we define our ambition. You can call it a kind of moonshot. If you don't have a challenge, then you set something. But you can start here and now every time. And I think this is important. Dedicate that ownership, mandate not only a mission, but give the resources. And of course, then the tech part comes in. Give them the room to deliver, but not in the next 2 to 3 years to come, but on a very short time frame. So we usually apply a kind of sprint mode so that these teams deliver within 12 weeks, whether the hypothesis of value is being delivered or not. So this is always the same pattern we are using in order to leverage technology fast and quick and to see, is there something in for us, for the customer, or even better for both of us. So this is something which we apply constantly. And what I have seen, because you ask globally, this is something which we see as well in other industries, and it helps to get a whole organization in a mode to adapt to something what I call the only certain is the uncertainty, to react immediately on situations which are coming up and to focus, to create value, which is most relevant at that very moment. And for us, it's been like a kind of mental fitness center to enter this one and to organize the whole or to develop the whole organization and of course the employees or the workforce towards this goal which has been set. So this is how we deal with it.
Wonderful. Hannah, I'd love to hear a little bit from you on kind of field enablement. I know Microsoft has many different technologies that have helped to support that, so I'd love to hear how Microsoft is really leaning into those efforts.
Sure. On field enablement, I drew out a few examples earlier of really getting technology into the hands of our frontline workers. This is an area where we've been focused throughout the COVID-19 experience, but may remain so today. I know many of you operate in your day-to-day businesses on teams, and so I'll just start by saying, in addition to the fieldwork element, a big part of our work with utilities has been shifting utilities into hybrid modes of work and setting companies up for success so that they can interact and stay engaged. I know that it creates a lot more flexibility, certainly in my business and in the business of the utilities that I work with, for folks to live and work in different spaces, for us to actually have a broader recruiting and talent pool, which is becoming even more important. On the fieldwork side, we do a lot of work on fieldwork enablement, on safety. Some of it is as simple as getting folks off of clipboard line walks and inspections and into hardened digital tools, but it goes all the way up to a much more advanced level around HoloLens, digital twins of systems, and actually being able to fully model some of our most complex grid systems for training in the simulated environment, but also for identifying areas of opportunity for efficiency and for safety of repair. So it's a broad spectrum. I would love to just spend a minute on I promised good news earlier.
Yes, this is your breaking moment right now.
Sure, I think many of our phones lit up last night probably as we were at or leaving dinner early this morning. But as you may already be aware, the Department of Energy, the Office of Electricity, has announced $10.5 billion of the Infrastructure Jobs Act funding. The funding has, of course, already been in place. This is the RFI, putting out the information of how the DOE Office of Electricity is thinking about releasing these program funds. So they're in the different buckets of grid resilience and smart grid, as well as grid innovation. And when I think about what this delivers to our industry, it's a generational opportunity to upgrade our 100-year, 60-year, 70-year infrastructure with the support of these federal funding and grants. It's a tremendous opportunity for investment, for leap ahead, for workforce enablement, and to really think of the system differently. I know from the conversations I've had with the folks leading that charge at the DOE and from the industry conversations we've been having this week, there's a desire, for those of us, I worked on a lot of ARA grants back in those days, there's a desire to take the lessons learned from those approaches and to really use this as a bigger opportunity to push ahead, to be innovative, to have digital at the center of these projects, and to make sure that they're transformative and not backward looking. And so this is an area where I'm extremely excited about this opportunity. Our role is to come in as a partner, as somebody who can help support, think up project ideas, and use this really as a true accelerant for things that might have been sitting on the shelf or on our want-to-do list that haven't moved before. So looking forward to more conversations around this, and it's open for public comment. So I would encourage all of you to take a look and let the DOE know what you think.
Perfect, thank you. Love to hear additional comments around that, but also wanted to kind of mention and lead into the fact that many countries have pledged carbon neutrality in the coming years, and there's many different ways that or both companies and countries are going to be able to enable that. So Chris, I wanted to kind of go back to the previous conversation around quantum computing, because I know that that is a big kind of step forward and leaps forward to be able to enable that. But are there other areas within IBM that you think are going to help propel that, or anything else you wanted to kind of drill into around quantum?
I mean, also, as an organization, we've made commitments to when we'll, a timeline by which we'll be carbon neutral. For us, that means we've got, there's a part of our workforce that's very office building sort of oriented, but then we also have production, manufacturing kind of facilities as well for other parts of our organization, and those around the world. The other thing I would say is we've recently added to our software portfolio. There's a product called Invisio, and it's sort of being built into a suite of products that is really going after the heart of anybody that wants to commit to being carbon neutral. That sort of implies you know where you are, and you know what initiatives, you know where you are in terms of what your carbon footprint is today, so you have to be able to track and measure. And then you are designing programs and committing to initiatives, and those have, you're expecting changes in your carbon footprint as a result of that. And so in essence, there's a software platform now to help you. Where am I? What am I planning? What will that do? So that you can actually have a roadmap for how to meet those commitments. So another element to how we're participating in that problem set.
Can I go back to IIJA funding for
Absolutely.
a second? Yeah, because I do agree that this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to invest in infrastructure. And for Entergy, it is particularly important. Entergy has a geography problem. We're in a part of the country where weather events have a huge negative impact on our infrastructure. So whether it's Katrina that everyone remembers, or it's recently as Uri or Ida, all of those events significantly tore up the electrical system that we worked so hard to build for years. And what happens is you build it back, but somebody has to pay for it. And so these dollars represent a significant opportunity for us to offset those costs that customers would bear if those funds weren't available. So we're all creating our narratives, in each jurisdiction. And what's important are the coalitions that you build in order to create the narrative that's going to appeal to DOE. And so part of that narrative is technology. Part of that narrative is when you build back, what is this going to do for the community? How is it going to impact decarbonization? All of these areas, you have to tell those stories. And where I think technology can play a really, really significant role is helping us tell those stories and making that more palatable to the decision makers in Washington, D.C.
Yes,
I'll-
sir.
I'll go ahead and open it up to the rest of the panel in case you wanted to comment or provide any other insights on this area of focus. If not, I'm going to pivot. So we have encountered one of the most significant impacts on energy, which is the Russia-Ukraine war, since the Industrial Revolution, and it's definitely impacting. Its impact is felt on a global scale. And so I think that there are many challenges that have come from that and many new ways of looking at what energy sources are now seemed kind of possible and deemed relevant as we look at the short term and even into the long term. So Jens, I'd love to open it up with you, especially being in Europe and having your kind of perspective heard on how this is impacting both Europe, but then also a global viewpoint on that as well.
Thank you. So just to give an idea of what is happening on the markets right now. Since January 21, we've seen rising energy prices. And of course, the event in late February with the invasion of the Ukraine has increased furthermore, not only the price levels, but as well volatility in the markets. So why should we care about this? So as a utility, we have to organize and not only to deliver this energy, but as well, you made it the statement with affordability. This is a severe issue. I will explain it right now. But as well, we need to stay in place, because if we go bankrupt in such a situation, then we have the state to step in the situation. And we've already seen with some gas suppliers in Germany, but as well in other European markets, that they need to be supported somehow to maintain the system alive. Now, what happens with the customer? I said, since 1st of January up till today, we had only seen doubling the prices for the end customers. So an average customer would pay $2,000 for energy per year, and now imagine it's $4,000. But this is only the beginning. The energy markets on the other side of us, at the wholesale prices, have increased tenfold already. So what will happen with the winter in front of us in 5 weeks? The heating season is about to start. And we are not yet sure if there will be outages, but what we are sure about is that the price levels we see are only the beginning. So we need to organize around it. And of course, the customers already notice that there will be an impact, and they are suffering uncertainty. And they request from us as a utility mainly 3 aspects. First, they want to understand what is the reason why the prices are rising that way. What has gone wrong? What will we do now that we can manage this one? Of course, this is an answer we can't give alone. But anyhow, they address us. The second point is that we care, that we help the customers pay their bills somehow. And the third one is if we can come up as an expert with ways how to save energy. This is a very critical issue. And we have to target the customers proactively, because otherwise we are the messenger being killed or being shot. It's a little bit, I've had some discussions recently here with some colleagues of you of the banking industry. They said, we have a similarity to the situation we have had in the finance crisis over 10 years ago, when people were worried if they can afford living. This time it's not the house, it's energy. I just wanted to share this one because I think we have a global impact. The magnitude might be different in the regions, but we as utilities are requested to come up proactively. This is a game changer, which we've been low involvement product, and from one moment to the other, despite all the context, it's a high involvement product. We are requested.
Thank you for sharing, really appreciate it. Hannah, I wanted to kind of direct a similar question to you from your perspective as far as technology and how it could help support the crisis that we are facing.
Absolutely, and Jens, I so appreciate your perspective. And when I work with our European colleagues, energy efficiency is something that I think we as an industry have maybe moved past in our dialogue and in our discussions in the recent 6-7 years. It's been focused more on new tech and electrification. And I'm now finding I'm in conversations around heat pumps and accelerating building efficiency and finding those least cost pathways to reduce pain, right? And get new services in the hands of customers facing this challenge and of the energy retailers and service providers. From a Microsoft perspective, there's been public media on some of the role that we've played in this crisis. If you took away all of the rest of our business, we'd be the world's largest cybersecurity company. That's something that makes me proud to work at Microsoft. It's core to what we do and how we do all of our work. And when I'm in this space as a utilities person at a tech company, this has been a moment where I've thought a lot about critical infrastructure and cybersecurity and the work that we all have in front of us to bolster and increase our posture as an industry in cybersecurity. I am often mindful of the fact that there are 13 critical pillars of infrastructure in the US economy: finance, pharmaceuticals, telecom, banking, 13 right on 2. And the 2 at the base of that pyramid are fuels and the grid. And the more that we electrify as part of this energy transition, the more we reduce that pyramid to 1 or maybe 1.5, a little bit, depending on your point of view. And I'm always thinking, are we set up as a grid? Have we set ourselves up with the investment in our infrastructure to carry that full pyramid of our economy, of our households, of our communities? We're not there yet, and so that's a huge opportunity to us. Technology, in my point of view, is going to be central to that transition. We're not going to get there with the same engineering, with the same grid controls, certainly not with the same operating principles that we've used previously, because that's a whole new paradigm shift. And as we transition into a more distributed grid with more electric vehicles, more devices, more employees operating with devices in the field, we actually have to think about security not as a thing that we do in our business, but as foundational to how we operate the entire grid and our entire business. So that's an area where we spend a lot of time. We have security products that we sell to utilities. We have security products that actually cover the full stack of enterprise security out to endpoint and device security. And security is essential to every part of how we operate our systems and our business. So this is a conversation that we've had a lot, and in these recent events, global events, we're having more and more and more because we too are a critical infrastructure provider. Our cloud runs hospitals, financial markets, airports, and our critical infrastructure runs on your grid. So this has to be a joint partnership in how we get after this together.
Perfect. We will be going to Q&A in just 2 minutes, so please have your questions ready. But
let me comment on what Jens said, because when he was talking, I wanted to say,
Absolutely.
Amen, brother. Amen. Because at the end of the day, it's hard to explain. These fuel costs are pass-throughs. Mm-hmm. So we can't do anything about the gas costs. But customers don't want to hear that. Mm-hmm. And who else doesn't want to hear that are regulators. So that they get it and they explain. They get it when you explain it to them, but it doesn't matter. Because when the voters, who are our customers, are complaining about this, it's very, very difficult for them to hear the message that we're delivering to them. And why this is complex is because all of these innovations that we're talking about, these technology investments, your regulator has to approve that. But if your regulator is not willing to listen to you because your prices are high, it creates a challenge to really get anything accomplished from a technology standpoint. Mm-hmm. And so, where I think our technology partners can really help us is to understand that and help us think through how we solve our issues around these very, very challenging circumstances.
Perfect. With that, we are
Awesome.
going to go ahead to Q&A. See a few hands raised. I believe we have a microphone coming around.
Good morning.
Good
Morning.
I think we're very fortunate to have such an experienced panel giving your thoughts this morning on the technology in the future. I have a question, and I don't know who to propose it to, but other than just say the panel in general. And all of you sort of talked about it, because when I look at the topic of technology and energy in the future, it's changing everything that we do. You know, from technology, everybody's going to customer self-service. You know, more and more customers are doing business with us here and through the web. Well, what does that do to the contact center rep and the front counters? There's a reduction there with that workforce, and they have to be retooled, retrained, or repositioned. I think, John, you alluded to linemen and field crews, how they haven't changed. But yet and still, we have more and more folks with grid modernization, drones running the lines to look at outages. So ultimately, there will be fewer linemen, but there need to be higher talent. This whole modernization of the grid and moving solar into your distribution network, it's not easy, it's challenging. And the mixture with solar and hydro, and how do you mix that with the engineering folks into your grid? How do you look at net metering coming back into the grid? Could be very dangerous and explosive. So my question is, with all of these advancements, what are we doing with retooling, repurposing our workforce in preparation for changing of how they will engage our end users? And I also need to say thank you to Hannah, because man, without Microsoft's team and Instant Messenger, I don't know what we'll be doing.
Thank you. I don't know you, but I'm going to find you.
Who would like to take that?
I think that's a John question.
Please.
When you teed that question up, I thought you were going to say, with all these complex challenges, why didn't you just stay retired? So I say that's a really good question. You know, I think you raise a really important point. We could talk about the future of the workforce and where we need to be, but frankly, it's really difficult to do what you just suggested. That is the central problem and issue that all utility executives are facing. And so I think you raise a really good point. I think all of us are probably doing the best that we can do. You know, so we call them upstream issues at Entergy. It's really, you spend so much time working on reliability, resiliency, how do we evolve the workforce to deal with these challenges, that it's really difficult sometimes to think about the future in the way that you suggested. But we need to do that. So great question.
I'll just say, too, I'm spending a lot of time with folks on this, and I want to challenge the idea of doing more with less, and I want to think more about doing more with the workforce we have and then going out and hiring 30% more. And I bring that up because the level of infrastructure, I don't worry about linemen having work. We need 50x the linemen we have today out there installing renewable energy infrastructure, installing electric vehicle and electric transit infrastructure. I think we're looking for a boom in a lot of that highly skilled, trained field labor. I think it's some of the folks in our call center and enterprise side where we have an opportunity for upskilling and for training actually in deeper technology tools and capabilities. And so that's a little bit of how I'm thinking about it as in these conversations. And we did a survey of frontline workers last year at Microsoft. My boss, Daryl Willis, our global CVP of Energy, wrote a piece on it. And the two things, I'll forget the percentages, but the two things that hopped out to me from the survey we did was that the number one ask from frontline workers in what would help you feel supported from your management, it was communication. and about communication in a place that meets them where they are. And so using things like town halls and Teams or messages that really connect with them. They love executive videos. They like hearing from you. They look up to you as their leadership. So I think sort of we've done away with the long emails of org changes and transitioned into more conversation and connection, and field workers want that. The other was, I feel that my managers, my line managers are invested in my career when they equip me with more training and more technology. I've been in this industry 16 years. We all have a lot of trainings we have to do. I wasn't sure that we were going to get that answer, that folks might be overwhelmed with the deluge of what we're throwing at them with new tech and new trainings and new capabilities. But what we got back was hunger. That's when they feel that they're being invested in, that their career's being invested in and enriched. And so those were exciting findings for me.
Maybe I'll just add one thing. I would say, and I could answer this question maybe in two contexts. One, as running a consulting organization, part of the question is not unique to the utility industry. So our workforce is constantly having to learn, the new, Azure skills, AWS skills, Red Hat skills. So that's a constant thing that we're doing in terms of moving our workforce into the new modern technologies, so that we can be helpful for clients in those technologies. But the other thing I would say is, as I think about the clients we work with and the things that we're doing for them, which at the end of the day are really making them far more productive. In John Michael's case, it's a lot of, I use the term intelligent workflows, but it's a lot of customer service, the low-hanging fruit that could be solved through self-service, really chatbot, robotic, and he's sort of worked up the value chain of getting to harder and harder problems. But in a lot of our clients' case, it's not then reducing the workforce, it's improving the overall customer experience. It's allowing people to get to things that maybe before they didn't get to have bigger, nowadays maybe to answer these tougher conversations, which quite frankly are taking AHT off the charts, but it's more about improving the service overall, I think, from what I've seen. I can't think of any of our clients that are reducing their workforce because of any of the technology we're doing.
Yep.
It's about moving them on to things clients will value more.
Yep. That's right. Wonderful. Well, we are at time, and I appreciate all of the panelists' time today. It was very inspirational and insightful, so thank you so much. And then to all of you, thank you for joining us. And I know that the panel will be available, since I know there were a few questions that we didn't get to after, to have side conversations. But thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you.
That was great, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks, partner. Thank you. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, we're on break for 30 minutes. We'll be back at 11 with a discussion with Stephen Bernard about the fun stuff that happened at Sony back in 2014. And then we'll have lunch at noon. So enjoy your break.
You can